Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Hello and welcome to the Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Dawn, with the Dapper Yapper Josh, and tonight we're covering Monday Night Raw for 10/7/24.
Nice.
That's all I
Welcome
have to say
to
about
the
that.
top tier. Welcome to top tier wrestling, everybody. Yes, we'll be discussing WWE Raw from, as you said, 10/7.
Yes.
And this is a significant Raw because it is the first 2-hour Raw in 12 years. They've gone back to the 2-hour format for the first time. And both the world and intercontinental titles will be on the line, as well as fallout from the Bad Blood PLE. And this episode is taking place in St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis.
Now, as we get into the show, we see Sami Zayn arriving at the arena earlier in the day. And we also see the World Heavyweight Champion Gunter, who is putting his title on the line against Zayn. There was a little bit of contention, actually, on the interwebs about the fact that this was not done on a PLE. I think even Gunter said that he thought it should be done on a PLE. But
I felt the same way. I think I said that last night.
you did.
I felt like maybe it should have been done, but I guess they were just trying to get that storyline out of the way real quick. I mean, maybe there were plans for something else. I don't know. I just felt like that was kind of a disservice to Gunther since he originally lost his belt at a big event, at a big PLE. So
Not just a big event, at WrestleMania, the biggest event.
right. So to go from that to you're gonna have a match on Monday Night Raw, and no disrespect to Monday Night Raw, but it ain't WrestleMania. You know what I'm talking about, and like that was like the biggest WrestleMania in a very, very long time, if not ever. So to just have their Run It Back sesh be on a Monday Night Raw kind of felt like a downplay, especially considering the match
Yep.
itself, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But
Yep. Yeah, we'll revisit that as we get to that match.
yeah,
But then we're also shown Pete Dunne arriving, and he is also on the
who's that?
card tonight to face, I don't know, some little butch. But he's on the card to face Sheamus in a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match, also on the card this evening.
Oh, Butch.
Um,
Butch. Okay, yeah.
yeah, Butch. We also have the New Day in attendance because Xavier Woods is also booked to face Jey Uso for the WWE Intercontinental Championship.
Yeet.
And so we see Uso shown arriving earlier as well. Which of course, like Jay can't appear on screen without like everybody going yeet.
Yeet. Yeah.
I'm here for it. I'm not saying that in a derogatory fashion. Jey Uso has carved out a wonderful character for himself and gotten over phenomenally. So
Yes.
I'm here for it.
Considering that the word yeet, just that slang word has been around. It's been around for a minute before Jay started saying it, and now my man's got it on t-shirts. He's got it on glasses. I've got a pair of his shades with yeet on it.
It's brilliant. It's a word that is absolutely in the lexicon for like modern slang. but
I
it's
mean,
also a
brilliant.
word that is completely harmless.
Yep.
Like, of all the modern slang you could pick, this is slang for just like throwing a thing, like yeet, So
Yep.
it's great. He couldn't have picked a better thing to like kind of latch onto and get over with. I mean, the rise of Jey Uso is probably like something that folks should study because it's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's
Yep.
right up there with like the rise of Swerve Strickland. Um,
I agree. But
and you love to see it because it
I,
also feels incredibly organic.
I'm here for it. Yep. You took the words right out of my mouth. So all I can say to that is I'm here for it. Um, things I'm not here for.
Yeet.
Yeet. Things I'm not here for is Sexy Red. She came up to the ring. She came up to the ring to greet the crowd. I don't know what. I mean, she just said hello and then they kind of cut real quick to something else. Oh, to Bad Blood highlights. Um, which honestly we thought that would start immediately. We thought that the show would open, the screen would go black, and then immediately we get Bad Blood highlights. Because I mean, I feel like that's the case most of the time.
And we're not wrong. That's exactly how they opened the show. I mean,
They
outside of
did.
showing some people entering and like 2 seconds of Sexy Red entering the scene, because
Yeah.
even you and I noted that they like cut away from that like pretty quick.
Yeah, seriously, she started twerking and she twerked towards the camera and the camera was like, "Nope, off." I was like, basically, they were like, "That is not
Yeah,
PG-13." You know, they were
yeah.
not
I
feeling
mean,
that.
I am certain that everybody has their opinions on Sexy Red, and I'm not here to debate any of
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
will say that you almost violate having a PG of any flavor rating just by the presence of Sexy Red
You're
being
not
there.
wrong. You're not wrong. To me, that so for the older folks, that may be listening, and you may let's say you don't know who Sexy Red is. Okay, well, the equivalent of Sexy Red would be kind of like, man, I don't know. It'd be kind of like having like a playmate be the host for like a
Yeah,
Disney show or something. Like it's
yeah,
just it's a
yep.
weird thing because WWE has tried for a long time. I feel like they've tried for a very long time to be a Disney type company for wrestling. I mean they've always like they tried to do this. So and I know, but they went through the Attitude Era, and then after that it just kind of went PG, right? Like we had oh my god, John Cena in his very
Yeah.
PG era, his very
Oh man.
GPG
Yeah.
era. Like it cleaned, and from there it kind of remained that way up until now,
Yeah.
where things
Well,
are things are kind of relaxing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was just gonna latch on to what you said about John Cena because John Cena came on at the tail end of the Attitude Era,
Exactly.
and that's
Yeah.
where he took off. And very young John Cena at the time would have fit in perfectly with Sexy Red because at the time he was running around to Jacqueline talking about how he wanted to be the white sprinkles on her chocolate pudding.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, so that would have fit with Sexy Red. So Sexy Red, like what she does here in the WWE hasn't been too overt, like outside of
No.
twerking. But the reason I said what I said about her existence practically violates it is that if you're this is supposed to be a PG product and theoretically people
Exactly.
then get on
Yes.
social media and the internet. Her music, like she can go on WWE and maybe twerk a little bit and maybe hit PG-13. And that's one thing. But anybody who looks any deeper will see that her music is X-rated. So that's why I said what I said.
Yeah. And I agree. But no, for whatever reason, she is the host, and she was going to also be the host for NXT for Tuesday. And to each his own. I don't dislike her. I just know I made a joke earlier, but I don't dislike her. I don't really know her that well. What I have heard ain't my cup of tea, but if somebody else is bumping it, you do you. It's all good. Um, but after they did the Bad Blood highlights and the review, they of course talked about the extremely violent Hell in a Cell match with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, where CM Punk defeated him. Um, After that, CM Punk, his punk music, CM Punk's music hits, and he comes out to the stage and he's limping, he's bruised, he's bruised, beaten, and battered, and he gave us another semi coherent promo. Like I couldn't really understand what the message was that he was going for. Um, he was alive, but he doesn't feel like it. He's a winner, but he doesn't feel like he won. Um, he felt it
Yeah.
felt tremendous to step outside of hell in the cell and slam the cage door. But the way that match made him feel left him with lots of questions, whatever the hell that means. So, and then he didn't know what the future held for him. Um, he didn't have any more zero. He had zero Hell in a Cell matches left. He told them that, and he was right. Uh, he was banged up worse than he's ever been in his life. And as much as he loved the crowd, he just didn't know. And I don't know what he didn't know. Like, honestly, it was kind of weird. And then he started thanking people like he was in an award ceremony. Like you know what I mean? Like he had just got called up for an Oscar. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
he
Three
started,
distinct groups of people.
right. He wanted to thank his fans, the ride or die ones especially. The ones who make the signs and chant his name and all that their business. The second group was his peers, the people in front of the camera and behind, and he felt privileged to walk the hallways with them or something like that. And then the third group he wanted to thank were people like me and Josh who don't like him at all. Um, there's a thin line, according to him, between love and hate. And he has turned our hate into cash, folks. So he thanked us. That was very nice of him. I told him he was welcome. I don't think he heard me. Um, and if we dislike him, and there is no if, we do. Uh, regardless of what the reason may be, jealousy or hatred, I promise you, it's not jealousy. I don't think it's hatred either.
No, let
Um,
me see. In my head, I'm thinking if I were to have a pro wrestling career for myself that I would be envious of, which I guess is how he interprets jealousy here. CM Punk is nowhere on the radar. His is not a career I'd want to mimic, and I'm not envious of his position. Not at
no,
all.
no.
He's a guy who has run almost all of his opportunities into the ground, and as a CM Punk disliker, I'm waiting for him to run this one into it too. But time will tell.
Yeah. Um. Also, for the ones who don't like him, he doesn't know why we keep doubting him. Um. There were so many responses to that came up when he
So
said
many.
that. I mean, we were basically yelling at the screen there with all the reasons why we are doubting him. But he wants us to keep doing it, and I assure you, we will. After that, he said he was going home. He hadn't seen his wife in 5 weeks, so he had to buy a lot of flowers. And I thought to myself, honey, if all it takes is some flowers after you've been gone for 5 weeks. Mm. And then I'm thinking, why do you even need to do that? Did she not know that you weren't going to be home for 5 weeks? Like,
Right? Like, was it a mystery what you were doing? Where have you been? It's
yeah,
on TV,
like
man.
I was very sick. Like
That makes it sound like AJ's an awful woman.
seriously, like I don't even know, but he has to go buy her some flowers, because she is easily bought, apparently. Um, Puck isn't sure when he'll see us next. Oh, but he did
But
thank us.
this is another case of Punk cutting a promo that seems non sequitur in its
Yeah,
conclusions.
that's
Like,
what I
he
mean.
spent the first half of this thing talking about how he doesn't know what his future holds and this, that, and the other. And he's like, Punk isn't sure when he'll see us next, but, screw anybody who doubts him. It's like, you doubt yourself. Are you in that list? Man, you
You
talk.
legit spent I don't know how long going. I don't know. I just don't know. So you are full of doubt. my guy. So then, are you
So
referring to
why
yourself?
shouldn't we? Yeah,
Like
he's so non
you?
sequitur.
Yeah. So I have no idea, and that's one of the reasons why I can't get behind Punk. I feel like sometimes he just doesn't even think about what he's saying. Like he just comes out there and he mumble raps basically. Yo, he's a mumble rapper, guys. I don't know.
Oh, that's it. That's
I
it.
don't know.
That's it.
Thankfully though, the amazing Burn It Down music cut in, and we got everybody's favorite troll, Seth
Seth freaking
freaking
Rollins.
Rollins, back
Hmm.
baby. Um,
And super glad to see Seth back.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's the star of the channel, right? Um, like I don't know, he's the guy as far as I'm concerned. He dresses crazy. He's got the best laugh ever. That we can go all day with that. Like his stump, he makes it look good. I mark out hard for Seth freaking Rollins. I even like when he's saying his little spiel in the beginning when he's like I am an innovate all that, and he's like I'm Seth. Look, he points the mic at the audience. I know I'm not there. I'll say it anyway from my desk watching it. I'm saying it too. So huge fan
Yep.
of Seth freaking Rollins. He looks
Yep.
like
And
a
so when he
really cool hip Jesus.
he was the messiah of wrestling for a little
Yeah,
bit there. The
was.
Monday Night Messiah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, like that
I
was
know.
the
I know.
actual stick. So he comes back and immediately has a stare down with Punk, and then like walks through Punk to get to the ring, and so cool there. Um, and he makes his way back down and addresses some of the things that have been getting crazy since he's been gone. Um, Talking about the crazy stuff at Bad Blood, like Dominic Mysterio hanging from a shark cage, uh, the return of the final boss, and that hell must have frozen over while he was gone because Cody Rhodes teamed up with Roman Reigns
Mhm. Mhm.
and then was later punched in the mouth by Kevin Owens. But he goes on to say that he can't really talk about that last thing that much, so he'll move on.
But he brings it up because again, he is the world's messiest troll.
Yep. And then, of course, he hits us with the fact that he's a visionary, a revolutionary, and that he is Seth freaking Rollins to mad pop, deservedly from the crowd.
Yeah.
And he informs us all that he is here to absolutely and utterly destroy Big Bronson Reed,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
fantastic. I love everything that's happening around Big Bronson Reed right now.
Yeah.
The the monster on monster with Braun Strowman was outstanding. And I look forward to whatever program Rollins is going to have with him because I think it only goes up from here.
Yep.
And that's not to say that it started in a bad place. Like the program with Strowman was like one of the best big man things I've seen in wrestling industry wide, like in a long time. So I'm here for wherever this goes next.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think they've done a great job with Big Bronson Reed's image. I think they've done a great job with getting him over. Like this is a masterclass, honestly, in getting a wrestler over. I don't know who was in charge of that, but it was pretty freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
And so now he's gone from his monster match to now he's in the ring with Seth Rollins, and we're like, hello, that's what's
Yeah.
up.
Yep.
Honestly,
And
they've done a brilliant job with that.
And I would suggest that Seth Rollins sits at pretty comfortably for a while now, the top of the card.
Yeah.
And, that is a great promotion into a feud. And honestly, we both kind of said it. Like, I know he got in CM Punk's face, but we were both like, oh, please, no, don't tie Seth Rollins to this albatross. And I'm glad that
Yep.
it seems like that's not going to be the case. It looks like Seth will be dealing with Bronson Reed, and I am super here for it.
Now they did. I know that they're probably putting those two together again to remind us of this the dislike between the two. So maybe that's gonna be something coming up at a later date. Maybe CM Punk needs to go and heal up. And again, as much as I dislike CM Punk, he really brought it at Hell in a Cell. and it's a well-deserved break, a well-deserved rest,
Yeah,
honestly. For
yeah,
both him and Drew McIntyre, like those dudes
yeah. Jesus,
earned their
Drew
freaking
took a
break. Yeah,
yeah, he
exactly.
took a beating. He
Yeah,
took it on the top of the head for that one. Those stitches and the bump that he just basically flew into the ring steps back
yeah,
first. Jeez Louise.
yeah. I
So
mean,
yeah,
CM Punk. I've seen some of the stuff. Like CM Punk didn't get out unscathed. He's really bruised up. He's banged up. I
no,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
but I mean, you're right. You're right. Drew got the business on his head. Um, again by CM Punk. Well done, my dude. Well done. Um, so I mean, honestly, the break these two men get well deserved. I made a lot of jokes, and I don't like CM Punk, but you got to give the dude credit. You got to give somebody credit where
yeah.
credit is due,
I'll
and
give
he
credit where credit is
deserves.
due.
Yeah,
Yep.
he deserves credit for that amazing Hell in the WWE Hell in the Cell match because that was
Yeah.
he gave it. He gave it. He really
Yep.
did. So all jokes aside, well done for that. Um,
And they absolutely delivered on the promise that there will be blood. Oh,
they,
there was.
they sure did. Yeah. Um, I also like the fact that when Rollins was in the ring, he did say that like something like after everything CM Punk went through on Saturday night, from everyone in the building, he wishes CM Punk get well soon. And then
Yeah.
he goes, the sooner he gets back, it's the sooner that he can kick his ass. They kick his ass and retire him for good. And then
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
he did the famous Rollins cackle.
They
Um,
should change his name to Seth Trollins.
seriously, my man is the ultimate troll. He reminds me a lot of a friend that I have in the real world here. Very very trolly. This guy. Anyway, um, after that, he's cutting his promo on Big Bronson, and basically says, you can come, you can get it. Like you want it, you could come get it. You want to get famous, you bring it. Um, this time he's gonna be expecting him. And then Rollins music starts to play, but then Jey Uso's music cuts it off and starts playing, and then he makes his way down the entrance, dancing into the ring, and then he just kind of gets like he just stops and looks at Rollins, and they stare each other down. And Rollins was in the ring the whole time when his music cut. He was in the whole time, standing with his arms crossed, like for real. And Jay is like, yeah, cool story, yeet. And then he finally addresses him by looking at him, but didn't say anything. He just kind of looked at him like, this is my match time, so you don't out the ring. And finally, Seth does. I'm sure that's gonna come up later, probably next week. We'll talk about what that was all about. But for
Yeah.
the so then Jay comes out for his match with Xavier. I thought that was one hell of a opener. I thought it was pretty good, even with CM Punk's ramblings. I feel like he deserved to ramble a little bit because my man brought it. So if you're gonna go and rest and sleep and heal up, then cool, come out, say your bit, and then go do that. But aside from that, I mean, hell, even with that, I thought it was a pretty good opener, a strong one.
It was. It had a really good like one thing like flowed into the next,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
I've got to assume that's them capital or maximizing their time now that they're an hour shorter.
Hmm.
There's less, I guess, wasted motion would be a way of putting it. I mean,
Yeah.
not that I want to say that of wrestling. I truly enjoy watching it, so I don't want to be sped through. But this was actually just very smooth transitions.
Yeah.
Um, we went from Punk straight into Seth. We went from Seth straight into Uso, and it was all good. And that leads us to the first opening event of the night, which is the WWE Intercontinental Championship against main event Jey Uso, the defending champion, and Xavier Woods, the challenger.
Yeah.
And uh, I really enjoyed this match. Woods and Jay work well together.
Mhm.
Unsurprising considering, how long the Usos and the Judgment Day, went back and forth over the years
Yeah.
in the ring with one another. Although I was admittedly a little surprised at how quickly it ends up being the case that Jay knocks off Woods like clean.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it was legit a good match, but I feel like right before it started to kick into second gear, right before it started to get good, get into the weeds, it was over. I think I even commented. I saw him do the super kick, and then he was about to do the Uso splash, and I go, wait, is this it? You know, he hits the Uso
yep.
splash, and very cool. By the way, he looks really cool doing the Uso splash. Again, you guys will know who I'm a fan of, who I'm mark out for because I'll say something cool about him. But yeah, I mean, it looked good. They both looked good, but it was really brief. And I guess,
Yeah.
they got a lot of stuff that they're trying to get through. Like even in the opener there, they set up a lot of stories. Like a lot, they got a match coming with Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. There might be an altercation between Seth and Jay. I, I mean, like they went through a lot of stuff just at the opening. So I guess maybe they got a lot of stuff they're trying to get through for the 2 hours, and some stuff just suffers. I just wish that it wasn't a championship match that they would, you know,
Yeah.
take the time from, especially one that has such a heavy storyline that's happening right now with the with New Day. You know,
Yeah.
but
And
maybe that was the point.
unfortunately,
Maybe that was the point. Go ahead.
that's possible. Unfortunately, I guess the match itself wasn't really what this was about. It's more about the story arc. And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody legitimately thought Woods was going to win, but
Right.
like this felt almost squash level a little bit. So I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure where Woods is trying, like where, sorry, I should say where they're trying to go with Xavier Woods. Obviously he's being, groomed for a massive like heel turn.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, because his match. That's the one thing that I could say. It was his moves were very heel like. Even the
yeah.
stuff he was saying was very heel like. You know how heels will have the face down and they'll look at the audience or they'll address the audience and they'll go, "Is this your man? This your boy?" You know, that kind of thing. He was even doing that. So I just don't. I guess I'm assuming what they were trying to say in that match is that Xavier being as, because I mean he said as arrogant as possible, I can beat Jey Uso, and he has, so I can understand the confidence that he had say it in saying that.
Yeah.
But then he
But
also took that for granted and got super
mhm.
kicked because he thought he had it,
Yeah.
So I
And
think maybe that's the story there. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you're right, and I think they very clearly signaled that while Woods may have been able to beat Jay in the past, this is a different Jay Uso.
Yeah.
And the finish was pretty dominant, although I guess it just felt like it happened pretty quickly, and it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like Xavier Woods climbs to the top rope to hit his um elbow drop,
Hmm.
the one where he kind of runs across the ropes. Oh, what does he call it? It's based on a name from a Final Fantasy game. Limit break elbow drop, I think it's called. And like the super kick anti aerial that Jey Uso pulls off here is what I
Yeah.
would think looked like it finished the match. Like the Uso splash was
Tradition at that point.
just, yeah, at that point it was just like for
Show.
icing on the cake,
Yeah.
because they replayed the super kick that Jey Uso hit him with as he was flying out of midair, and it looked brutal. Like that was the knockout blow, and then the Uso splash was just an extended pinning sequence.
Icing
I mean,
icing
it
on the
was
cake.
just, yeah. So Jay like solidly and decisively just demolishes
Yeah.
Xavier Woods.
Like somebody made you the best cheesecake ever, and then they put like a chocolate truffle on top. Just you weren't expecting it, but there
Yep.
it is. Ah, for me? Yeah, that's what happened.
And so since the Usos and the New Day like have a relatively decent relationship with one another, or they did, Jay is trying to help Xavier up, and like Jay and Kofi are checking on Xavier, and Jay offers his hand. He wants to shake his hand for a well fought match, and Kofi shakes his hand and gives him kind of a bro hug, and he offers the same to Woods, and Woods just sort of looks at him and looks at his belt, and then just walks past him,
Yeah,
completely snubbing Jay's overture.
just not here for it. Not absolutely not here for it.
Yep, and he storms out of the ring, and Kofi follows and is like, "What's happening? Why?" And just outside of the ring, is where they stop, and then from out of nowhere, Braun Breaker hits the ring and spears the life out of Jey Uso.
Yeah,
And
like
that leaves
Spears
Kingston
his
and
soul.
Woods like arguing about how they have to help him, and Woods is like, "That's not our problem."
Mm.
And Kingston stops arguing after a bit and just rushes the ring to try and get Breaker off of Jay. And Breaker then demolishes Kingston, and Woods is just kind of standing there like, ugh. And so Braun Breaker is sort of surveying the wreckage for a little bit and
Yeah,
posturing.
because
And
what happens is Xavier goes and after Kofi gets speared, he grabs him by the leg. Xavier grabs Kofi's leg
mhm.
and basically drags him out of the ring. So now they're on the apron. Like those two are on the apron, and then you continue, please.
No, not so much on the apron, but just outside the
Right.
ring.
Yes. Yes.
And
That's outside the ring.
and then Breaker sees that they're kind of forming up over there, and so he exits the far side of the ring away from them and does the wraparound spear where he runs around the full, like the entirety or at least a half of the ring, and just spears the life out of Xavier Woods as well.
Yeah.
And so Breaker has demolished everybody that was involved in that match now, and returns into the ring and holds up the Intercontinental Championship. And I think to anyone with eyeballs, this is a pretty clear signal. Like, yes, it's a little confusing because Breaker, like just the week before, was all sportsmanship with regards to Jey Uso. And
Yeah.
this week he obliterates all of them. But the announcers are like, why did Braun do it? What's
Why,
going on? And it's like
Braun?
he's standing there holding the
Why?
belt up. You know why he did it. Like, he
It's like
wants the belt back, is why he
Tesseract.
did it.
Tesseract, stop it. You know why? Just knock it off.
Yep. And so that's where that particular segment comes to an end, is Braun Breaker clearly indicating that despite what he may have said a week ago, he
He has
wants his belt
regressed.
back.
He has
Um,
regressed, and he is not happy, and he wants
and he's
he
got
wants
spears
his
for everybody.
everybody. Yeah. So I mean the only problem that I have with that match is that it was just a little bit short. But I mean it got the point across. I think it told the story, and the story itself I think was the most important part, and kinda it was good. It was interesting. I'm very interested to see what happens next with that bit, especially with New Day. I just want to know what's happening with Xavier Woods. Xavier, if you're going to the dark side, join us. Like, use it.
Join the
Fear
heel
not.
team.
Yeah, do it.
Yep. And so that's a development that I'm keenly interested to see where it's going.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I have an idea of where it's going, but I still want to watch it play out.
Yeah. We have
Um,
cookies. We have cookies at the dark side. Come on.
on the dark side, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So we move on after that match to a video promo of Rhea Ripley um, telling Liv that she just continues to prove that Liv Morgan cannot defeat Rhea Ripley by herself.
Yeah.
And now she has Raquel Rodriguez in this. And Rhea says it was smart, but it would have been smarter if she didn't get caught. Now all Morgan has done is guarantee another beating and delay the inevitable. Uh, Morgan clearly needs Raquel, so Rhea is happy to go through both of them.
Yeah. So, uh, and I can see it happening. I don't know what they're planning to do with Raquel, but we'll talk more about Raquel here in a second because I think she comes up again in this
She
episode.
does.
And we will cross that bridge when we get to it. It's just head scratching all around. Um, After that, they did that replay of what had just happened moments ago. But then they went into a backstage segment where Jackie Redmond was trying to talk to Braun Breaker to see basically what happened. I mean, she basically cited what we just did. You came out last week and seemed to show respect to Jay, and now you're out there spearing folks. Like, what up? And he just kind of looks at her and then walks off. So I don't think even he has an answer. Um, they probably just told him, "Hey, we need you to just kick this up again because he's got to lose the belt. He's got USO business, or Bloodline business. I don't know, whatever the case. Because I mean, I don't know if he's gonna keep the belt when he goes back to the Bloodline, but we all know he's going back to the Bloodline, right? Like we know that eventually he's gonna go back and help and do what he got to do. I kind of think it'd be an awesome flex if he went back to the Bloodline with that belt. He'd be the only dude in the original Bloodline that has a belt at that point. And I think
Yeah.
that'd be a nice dynamic between him and Roman to deal with.
I don't disagree. I think that would be cool. I just don't know that they can pull it off because of the way they've got the belts separated on different
Yeah.
shows. Because obviously, at a certain point, Jay would have to migrate to SmackDown to participate with this.
Well, yeah, but
S-
also though that you have a belt and they kind of put you on any show when you have a belt. So I mean, I'm not really sure why they couldn't do that with this. But you're right. Maybe they're trying to lean away or come away from doing that.
yeah, I tend to suspect that we're going to have Breaker or someone lift that belt off of Jey Uso sooner rather than later
Yeah.
to clear him up to do bloodline business. But we'll see. I mean, depending on how long like other events in the bloodline unfold and at which point they want Jay to become involved again and how they want to go about doing that, it could either be short time or for a while before that actually plays out.
Yeah. True.
Um, and following that backstage segment, we are given a video recap of Triple H announcing at Bad Blood the creation of the WWE Crown Jewel Championship, a championship that will be awarded to the winner of a contest between Raw's heavyweight men's champion and SmackDown's heavyweight men's champion, and as well as the women's versions of each, is the Raw Women's Champ and the SmackDown Women's Champ. So I have to assume that these WWE Crown Jewel Championships have like two belts, one for the men and one for the women.
Yeah.
Even we are only shown the one belt, which I presume is the men's championship because it's gigantic.
Yeah. It is
Um,
huge.
and so that's a cool new kind of like, I guess, exhibition or special title.
Hmm.
It reminds me a bit of like the tournament belt for the Owen Hart Classic that happens in AEW.
Hmm.
And so that could be a neat little just bonus prize for some extra stakes at Crown Jewel.
Yeah.
And I mean, who doesn't want to see like a champion on champion match between like the WWE champion and the SmackDown champs of both shows on the men's and the women's sides? Those could be some excellent matches.
Yeah.
And again, their actual championships are not on the line. It's just going for the crown jewel championship.
Yeah.
So they could book that any number of ways since whatever storylines involving the champions of those two shows aren't really at risk when that is being booked.
Yeah.
Um, so it could make for some interesting matches. I have to admit, I'm curious about how that's going to pan out.
Yeah.
And we may have some clarity on which champions are facing one another by the end of this Monday Night Raw.
Hmm.
Because we still have Gunter's belt on the line this evening.
Yep.
And then shortly or briefly after that video package, it cuts back to Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett, and they briefly discuss an altercation that apparently occurred between Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens following Bad Blood outside the arena. Apparently, Kevin Owens swung on Cody Rhodes and punched him. And the only statement that they've made on that is Triple H released a tweet saying that they're aware of what happened between Cody and Kevin and that the WWE is dealing with the matter internally.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat because it makes they're trying to make it sound like this isn't kayfabe, but I think we're all aware that it is kayfabe, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of the AEW business that happened with CM Punk and Jack Perry. I don't know if that's on
Kinda,
purpose.
yeah.
Like, if they bust out with some backstage video about what happened, I'm gonna be done. I'm gonna feel you guys are
Oh,
messy,
yeah,
but
maybe that's next.
also funny. But I mean, they're kind of treating it the same way, so we'll see. Uh, After that, I believe we had the wasn't it a preview for the good old fashioned Donnybrook match? I believe.
I think so. And just immediately before that, we got the arrival of the American Nightmare
That's
Cody
right.
Rhodes to the
Yes, yes,
arena.
yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because the camera cut out real quick. Like he was like I saw him walking, and then it was like the camera fell or something.
Yeah, it was
Because
a
I
little
remember
weird.
going, "No, that's the ground." When they were like, "You're gonna see American Nightmare Cody Rhodes," and I'm like, "Nope, that's ground. That's ground right there." And then the video promo for the good old fashioned Donnybrook match because right after
Hmm.
that, that was the opener for Sheamus to come out to
Coming
the
out for the
ring. Yeah,
match. Yep.
with this
And I
match,
mean,
Butch.
the setup for the Donnybrook, there's like whiskey barrels, a mini bar, shillelaghs, cricket bats are all at ringside. So this is a very themed like street fight for lack of a better phrase or
Yeah,
extreme rules match. And it could be a lot of fun. And in fact, we end up seeing that soon. Um, but at that point, I think there was after Sheamus's entrance, they cut to commercial and then returned for a locker room segment.
hmm
And
yes,
we have Karrion Cross like talking to the Miz, and Miz stops him and he says, "Look, there's no universe in which Miz is part of the Final Testament. He did what he did last week for himself." And uh, R-Truth comes up and says he forgives Miz for attacking him because he must have been confused because he might still think R-Truth is part of the Judgment Day. And R-Truth says, "But I'm not." And then Miz responds with, "No, it wasn't a mistake. He meant to attack him." And R-Truth says he thought they were brothers. And right around the time R-Truth states that they're brothers, you get a Wyatt Six logo that appears briefly on the screen.
yeah. Now,
And then,
right before that, though, when the Miz was talking to Karen Cross, and he started talking about him doing everything he had done for himself, the White Six thing appears up with "There you are."
yeah, but it was also pretty close to the time where R-Truth is saying that they were brothers.
Yes.
Um, and I think part of the reason for that is that they may be signaling because the Wyatt Six tends to have a real vendetta towards anybody who turns on their quote unquote family.
Yeah.
And so I read that as the Wyatt Six may be coming after the Miz next.
Yeah, I think so. But
But
what
our truth,
I'm interested to know what his connection, what Karrion Cross's connection is to the Wyatt Six, because or maybe it's not Karrion. Although I feel like I've seen something around Karrion Cross before and the Wyatt Six. Maybe I am misremembering, but I kind of almost feel like I have seen something. But
yeah,
I
I'm
guess we'll
I'm
see.
not yeah, I'm not sure because if the Wyatt Six are upset when people turn on one another, then Karrion Cross is like on the opposite end of that, being the instigator for exactly that thing.
Yeah,
Like he is the instigator theoretically for why Xavier Woods and Kofi are at odds, or where that's going. And
mhm,
here he's the instigator for breaking up the Awesome Truth. So it seems to me like Karrion Cross's role right now, like the role he is playing, is sort of like the devil on your shoulder, whispering all the negativity into your ear to get bad outcomes to come to pass.
yeah,
Um, and it's interesting, but I haven't yet seen something that fully connects Karrion Cross with the Wyatt Six. If anything, they, as I just mentioned, their MOs would indicate that they are at odds with one another. But who can say?
yeah.
Um, But R-Truth wants to make it right by going to Adam Pearce and making a match. And Miz says that, see, R-Truth, that's exactly the problem. If you want a match, then you and me can go one-on-one next week on Raw. And then Miz storms off and Karrion Cross follows after.
Yeah. Hmm.
And that brings us back to the good old-fashioned Donnybrook match.
Yes.
Um, Pete Dunne having made his way to the ring.
Finally. We were
And
all waiting on him. That's why we had to watch promos. I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah, and Sheamus quite quickly brings it to Dunn with clubs in the corner and just going ham on Dunn until Dunn starts kicking away at Sheamus's legs. And without getting too much into a move by move, play by play, there are some real nice high spots.
Yeah.
There was a phenomenal, as you put it, Alabama Slammer, where Dunn charged at Sheamus and Sheamus just picked him up and obliterates him with the Alabama Slam.
Yeah.
And there was another move where Dunn climbed up some of the barrels that were outside the ring at the entrance ramp, and like from pretty high up, he ends up doing a tornado DDT to Sheamus.
It looked good.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of just like punching and throwing each other at things that are around the ring, bouncing Sheamus's face off of like the mini bar and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, and let's see. One of the bigger spots in this match was where uh, Sheamus was actually able to hit the Celtic Cross, or the High Cross, whichever one they go with, on Pete Dunne. And I personally found that incredibly satisfying because I feel like Sheamus, right now, as far as I'm aware, in the WWE, there's only 3 people that utilize what is a crucifix power bomb. Obviously, Damian Priest is straight up doing the Edge as
Yeah.
an homage to Scott Hall.
Hmm.
But way back in the day, early on in Sheamus's WWE career, the High Cross was his finish, which is a lot like the Edge. I think it's only mildly different in that he runs a little bit before he finishes it off instead of just dropping straight away.
Hmm.
And then we have the newly acquired all ego Ethan Page, who uses a version of what I think he calls it the Ego's Edge. So those moves get stifled or reversed or countered or just don't get to happen very often at all. So it gets to the point where it's frustrating because I love that move and I want to see it happen, and it just doesn't. So it was so satisfying that Sheamus was able to land this on Pete Dunne.
Yeah.
Now, in this particular instance, it only led to a 2 count. Um, let's see. One of the other major, like, really kind of dangerous high spots that they did was crawling to the very top of several of the stacked whiskey barrels that were outside the ring, and Sheamus hitting a white noise on
Yeah.
Pete Dunne through a couple of tables. And it was a heck of a bump for either of the two men to take, but I think one of the tables must have scraped the heck out of one of Sheamus's arms,
Yeah.
because after that spot, his I think it was his right arm at the elbow, at the back of the elbow, was just bleeding profusely.
Yeah. And I mean, excuse me. I think, I mean, because I mean, it could have been a bad time. That could have been Butch's head. Sorry, Pete Dunne. That could have been his head. So good on Sheamus for protecting the skull and the delicate skull meat of Pete Dunne. But I mean, his arm looked pretty rough.
Yeah, it was a very stiff spot.
Yeah. And I mean, shortly after that, oh yes, yes, yes. The other crazy thing that happened is Pete Dunne ends up tying Sheamus's hands
Hmm.
behind him with zip ties, and then he goes in. He goes in for was it a cricket
Yeah,
bat, or was he? Yeah, he was going in with a cricket bat, but then Sheamus caught him with the pump knee to the jaw. Like, remind you, his hands are zip tied behind him.
yeah,
Um,
like a la handcuffs.
yeah, and then right after that, he immediately follows up with the broke kick, and then falls on top of Butch for the pin. But I mean, that
Yep.
was insane. Like,
It.
it looked really really freaking cool, and that was honestly a
Hmm. Hmm.
surprisingly good match. I did not expect for it to be as good as it was, but it was one hell of a match. I knew Sheamus was gonna bring it. I didn't have much faith in Pete. I'm just being honest, but I mean, he brought it. I feel like he brought it, and it was ultimately, like, overall, a really good, solid match.
Yeah, I would go so far as to suggest that it is one of, if not the match of the night, because it was really, really good.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Thinking about the other matches to come, yeah. Um, excuse me. I think after that we went backstage again, um, for an interview with Kathy and Cody Rhodes. And what happened after that? I'm trying to remember, because I know that shortly after he walks, or shortly after they had start the interview, um, I think he said he'd address what happened with Kevin Owens
Yeah,
on Friday, but then uh he was here to find out what it takes to be the crown jewel champion, basically. And then he walks off and starts fist bumping people. But there was like somebody that was hanging around, like a mysterious figure or something. And they didn't really talk about that or address that at all.
yeah.
I don't even think the announcer said anything about it.
I don't know. If the biggest mysterious figure outside of the Wyatt Six, around the place in Raw right now is Karrion Cross.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I
So
was thinking.
and if the story right now is, Kevin Owens is having a falling out with Cody Rhodes,
Hmm.
this is another. look, brothers turning on each other kind of a thing. So it would be in Karrion's wheelhouse. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Karrion Cross has been talking to Kevin
The
Owens,
Kevin Owens, yep. And maybe we'll find that out. I don't know. I like the mysterious figure looming around thing. I'm into it. Raw's got some creepy elements that I'm here for, and I don't know who is behind it, but I like it. 2 thumbs up. But then we get Sammy walking up to Rhodes, and he basically is saying that he expects to be the person that Cody faces at Crown Jewel, and then he asks him if he wants to talk about what happened between. Zane asks Rhodes if he wants to talk about what happened between him and Kevin, and Rhodes basically was like, "No, we don't have to uh, discuss that." But then he says that he's hoping that Zane is the one that wins because he would like to face him for the belt as well. Um,
yep. That Zayn shocked the world once before, so he's hoping he can do it one more again.
yeah. So yeah, and that was nice. Nice little. Then they shake hands. After that, we got a video, basically highlighting the Last Man Standing match from last week, from last Raw.
Last monster standing.
Yeah, sorry, Last Monster Standing. My bad. Uh,
And that match deserves a highlighting, to be perfectly honest. I mean, that was so good. That whole program leading up to it was phenomenal.
yeah. No, you're not wrong. It was you know 1985 again, and we were watching I don't know, Hulk versus Andre the Giant. Like it was like epic.
Oh, you know it. Yeah, yeah. It was like the battle of the giants. It was
Yeah,
so good. Like
it
I
was uh childhood dreamy is what that match was, and it was
yeah,
just
and
fun to see.
I fully agree. And for my part, I'll leave it there or I'll just mark out for how good that was all over again.
Yeah, I hear
Um
you. But
But following that video package, and I just
uh,
want to preface this real quick. Remember how in our Bad Blood podcast, I said, I sure hope Raquel isn't here to be Liv's lackey.
I
Oh,
seem to recall that. Yes. Well, guys, I bet you're not surprised that in the video that was cut after the highlights from Last Monster Standing, we had Raquel Rodriguez drive into the arena in a black SUV. I'm sorry, she drove Liv and Dominic Mysterio. Uh, that's right, she was the driver. She even stopped the vehicle, got out, and opened the door for Liv Morgan and
yep.
Dominic.
So
Um,
Raquel's big return is to be a chauffeur. Fantastic.
so Jackie Redmond walks up, and uh, and I think Morgan said something like, "Even when she loses, she still wins." Because I mean,
Yeah.
technically, she lost the match with Rhea
Yeah.
because
Yep.
yeah, because of the interruption from Raquel. But here's the important part of this little segment here. Redmond goes to ask Rodriguez if she's a member of Judgment Day. She asked uh Liv and Dominic first, more Liv. So she didn't even address the person she was talking about. She went and asked Liv as if Liv had a servant that didn't speak. Um, and Liv refused to answer, and all of a sudden she wanted to go home. They want to leave. So then
Yeah.
they get back in the car, her dirty Dom and Liv, and I think Raquel closes the door for her. And then finally, Jackie Redmond turns to Raquel and asks her, but again, remember, she's had her tongue removed since coming back. She just looks
Yeah.
at Redmond and then gets back in the driver's seat to drive
Yeah.
drive them away. Let that
And if
wash
I
over you
recall,
guys.
Yeah, it was. It's not. I'm not thrilled with that turn of events, but I think that interview was even more frustrating because after like Liv went on her tirade about how even though she technically lost the match, she still won because she still got her belt, she still got Dominic Mysterio, and now she's got Raquel. So even when she loses, she still wins.
Yeah.
And then after that, she says, "So, Jackie, any other questions?" And Jackie's like,
Oh
"Well,
God,
yeah.
yes.
So, is Raquel Rodriguez a member of Judgment Day?" And then Liv is like, "Well, we really got to go. We don't have time." It's like you asked her if there were other questions, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're out of time. So
I'm telling you guys,
annoying.
I'm telling you, this is another example of NXT folk coming to WWE and just getting squashed. Now I know Raquel has had some medical issues that she's had to step away from. So it's kind of it's really good that she's even got anything going right now. But why did they pick freaking this? Why did they pick
Yeah.
I'm gonna have the big muscle be the dumb mute. Like why? Why? And why would anybody who could crush most of the other competitors backstage be content with being a freaking chauffeur for a midget?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can only ask Wardlow or Diesel,
Yeah,
um,
yes. And I mean, I
because
thought it was
it's that
played
all
out.
over again.
I
Yep.
thought it was played out when it was Diesel. I thought it was played out when it was Wardlow. Like, I'm so freaking sick of it. But even, you know what? Wardlow, even at least he had more of a storyline behind it, other than I want to serve
Yeah,
MJF.
that's what throws me off a bit because like they were tag partners. So I thought, okay, it's Raquel helping out her friend. But now it's like Raquel is her servant?
Yeah, so she came back as the hired help for some reason. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's what is that WWE? Let me ask you a question. I'm not even trying to be funny. Is that really what you wanted to do for someone named Rodriguez? You wanted to make her hold on, I'm being dead serious. You wanted to make her the freaking hired help to your blonde wrestler? Is that the look that we're going for? I would consider that. I would reconsider because that's ridiculous. And you know what? Let's take that out. Let's just take that all out. Raquel Rodriguez was a dominant force in NXT. She had freaking matches with Rhea freaking Ripley. And now she's driving a car for Liv Morgan? What?
Yeah, I do
You
have
could have
hope.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
No, no, go
got
ahead.
they could have done literally anything else. Why isn't Carlito driving the freaking SUV? Why is it honestly? Why isn't he driving? There's enough people. There's enough room for 6 people. Uh, da- uh, uh um, oh my God. Big Head, JD
JD
McDonough,
McDonough.
JD McBobblehead, and Finn Balor. That equals one freaking person. So there's plenty of room in that giant SUV for everybody. So why couldn't Raquel be back in the back with JD and Dominic? Maybe Finn's taking a day off because of his match. Maybe he needs to recoup. So why couldn't the rest of them be back there and have Corlito drive or something, and then just have her a part of Judgment Day? Why do you have to legit make her the freaking driver?
Yeah.
What is
And I
that?
I feel like this whole segment because the whole rest of Judgment Day wasn't
JD,
there. This was
make
just
JD drive. Sorry.
this was just Dominic, Liv, and Raquel. Um,
Stupid.
so it does leave open the question, like, is she a part of Judgment Day? But I do think the thing that was absolutely answered is like Raquel's place in the universe. She was chauffeuring Liv and Dom, and she
Yeah.
didn't speak for herself. She is absolutely Liv's lackey,
Yeah. She
and
didn't even
that
she
was
didn't even
the
get
thing.
addressed. She didn't even
Yeah.
get
Yep.
addressed until Redmond had no choice but to address her. What kind of shit
Yep.
is that?
Yeah. So it definitely did exactly what I hoped it wouldn't. So the only thing I have hopes for now is that because Rhea Ripley clearly is not done with Liv Morgan and Raquel, like we were saying in Bad Blood, like we think Priest probably will move on, but clearly there's unfinished business with Rhea with the rest of the
Yeah.
Judgment Day. and particularly Liv, Dominique, and Raquel.
Yeah.
So this is going to put Raquel in a picture where she's up against Rhea Ripley. That is the only upshot I have from this right now. And the
Yeah.
only thing I can hope for is that, much like happened with Diesel and much like happened with Wardlow, they will eventually turn on their smaller, weaker masters. And so I look forward to Raquel turning on Liv and stomping a mud hole in her.
Yeah.
And then it being about Raquel and Rhea.
I just
And that
wish that that's
would
how
do
that.
great.
Yeah.
That would do good for Raquel.
Yeah.
Even if I don't much care for the way that this is opening, if it leads to that, then that's good. Because she definitely needs to be in a picture where she's on the level to wrestle someone like Rhea Ripley.
Seriously.
Because she did back in NXT. They had fantastic matches against one another. So I'm hoping this is like kind of the route that they're going to go to get her back to that level where she's just kind of been meandering
You and
on
me both.
SmackDown.
Yeah.
Like, I know you mentioned that she was out for a while with the skin issue that she was dealing with, but prior to that, she was meandering. Like they just didn't seem to have a proper direction for her, and this at least looks like it's going somewhere. So
Yeah.
maybe we will suffer Liv's lackey long enough for us to be like, geez, Raquel, why don't you just punch this little midget until eventually she does? And we're like, yeah. So that'll be cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's that to look forward to. It's just I wish that you didn't have to go through those types of hoops. Like it's just that's a bleh, you know? But
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
But
What are you gonna do?
we'll see. I mean, it certainly at least puts her in the right picture with the right players as opposed to
Yeah.
being in limbo where she was. So I'll take it. I would have preferred that she come back and be like, the only reason I saved Liv is because I'm going after that championship myself. You know, that would have been cool. Like she just comes and she's dominant and wrecks shop. But this could get there. And so as long as it ends up there, I'm here for it. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
But when kind of the thought process is that Raquel is like, you know, got like she's got size, but she seems like she's just big and dumb, then it's sort of reinforced by this big dumb mute like woman servant angle, and it's like that kind of hurts. But we'll see. Maybe they can play off of that and get us to somewhere else,
Yeah.
and that would be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so from there, we come to our next segment taking place in Adam Pierce's office, and he is having a conversation with NXT General Manager Ava Rain,
Hmm.
aka Little Rock. Um, and Ethan Page walks up, and that's kind of interesting to see, right? I'm like, I saw Ethan Page, and I'm like, wow, he's been here 2 minutes. Is he already getting a call up to the main
Yeah, I
roster?
that's what I thought too.
But it turns out that he's come all this way to rain on Ava Rain's parade, so to speak. So after he introduces himself to Pierce, he points out that CM Punk cost him his championship in NXT because I think he was the special ref between him and Trick Williams.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
and Page says he would like to get his situation back on course, and Pierce more or less deflects to Ava. Is like, well, this is an NXT issue. You need to talk to the NXT general manager. And Ava's right there, and she says, well, this is Raw. I'm off the clock. I'm sorry, I can't help you. And then Sexy Red then walks in, and everybody's like, oh, hey, Sexy Red. And then I think Ethan Page is like, oh, I'm Ethan Page. And Sexy Red's like, yeah, you're that guy that Trick Williams just beat the crap out of. And Paige is Paige just she asked how I think she asked how you doing, and Paige just says I've been better, and then he storms off.
Yeah. Or like I've had better or something. He says something weird like that, but then he storms off. He was not happy that he got called out. And then Sexy Red, it's like you don't have to be rude.
Right, right. It was either
Oh
that or what did she say? Oh, no need to have an attitude
yeah,
or
something like
something
that. You
like
don't.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he
And
storms off, and then she goes back because apparently, um, Ava was there for Sexy Red. Yeah, so
yeah, yeah.
just a little side
And
note. They're gonna go hang out. I don't know. Who knows?
despite everything we said about how, like, for a PG kind of a show, Sexy Red might not be the greatest call, because if anybody who's in the age range for PG to PG-13 goes and Google's Sexy Red, it's going to be not PG-13 for long. But if
Yeah.
this is how they use Sexy Red, then it's not bad, right? Like, I'm
No.
not trying to just crap all over Sexy Red. I'm just pointing out that it's a weird, like, for a company that literally fired at two different points, like Zelina Vega for an OnlyFans and Mandy Rose for, like, the off-brand OnlyFans,
Yeah.
like, that you would bring in Sexy Red, like, on its face seems a touch hypocritical, because she is verbally more X-rated than whatever those two women were doing on websites that you have to be an adult and have a membership for, and yet
Yeah.
you fired for that over a policy. So that's where I'm coming from. It's not that I
Yeah.
have anything against Sexy Red.
Nah. I feel you. And I tend to agree. It was just I mean I was confused the first time I saw her when we were watching NXT one night, and we saw Sexy Red on NXT, and we were like, Nani?
What?
Uh
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean it was just it's just kind of like okay, it's kind of shocking. But I mean, she didn't do anything over the top that I saw. I think they utilized her pretty well. And the last time
Yeah,
I
and
saw
that
her when she was on NXT, I thought the same thing. But I was just,
yeah.
I have to comment that if any kid is like, Sexy Red's cool, and then they go and they Google Sexy Red, that might change that kid's life. I'm just saying. Or hey, or maybe they'll find her video on YouTube and just be too young to even understand what they're watching. But whatever the case, I'm sure, that it'll be fine. I don't know. I mean, I don't think she's cutting porn promos or nothing, So
No, nothing like that. I just said what I said.
yeah,
It
hmm
seems oddly like we want to maintain this PG-13 thing,
I
but we're gonna
agree.
have this
Yeah,
that is like the musical equivalent of if they had like a porn star come on there. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
hmm
So it's like a weird little, possibly hypocritical dance that they're doing here. But as far as what Sexy Red does when she's there, she's actually part of like, she's done well with the little skits they gave her. She did fantastic with her interaction there with Ethan Page, and cutting him to the quick and then being like, no need to cop an attitude. I mean, it was funny.
yeah.
So take that for what it is. Um, but that leads us into a fairly massive match, a full on 10-woman tag match between the Unholy Union, comprised of Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and Pure Fusion Collective, also comprised of Sonya Deville, Shayna Baszler, and Zoe Stark, versus Natalia, Zelina Vega, Lyra Valkyria, Caden Carter, and Katana Chance.
Yeah. This is a big match, and you know what? I don't have much to say. It was quick. It was another quick match, but for what it was good. The audience didn't seem to be into it, but I don't think they're much into these particular wrestlers. I don't mean that in an insulting way, but every time I see like literally any of them, pick any of these ladies minus Natalia and maybe Zelina Vega. The audience really didn't pop for this particular group of ladies. Um, but still, they went out there, and I think they wrestled their asses off. I think they did a pretty good job with the time allotted them. Because I think it was just about as
Yeah.
long as the match between Xavier Woods and Jey Uso, and I think it's just like these are just like little quick um before another big match comes, they have this match. Like there were two longer matches and then two not as long matches, and this is the second one. Um,
Yeah.
I,
And it's, go ahead.
The time that Sonya was in the ring, I've commented that she's been looking sloppy. She looked pretty good last night or Monday. Um, she looked really good selling moves and delivering them. Zoe, I think, always looks good. Shayna looked better. Shayna looked good. Zelina looked. Everybody that got into the ring, everybody like I feel like everybody had a small little segment to shine. Um, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, those two ladies, two thumbs up. They looked good. Um, I'm trying to think real. I'm just trying to go over in my head if there were any super highlights. If you have any, please step in.
Um,
I can't really think of any, but I do know that it was an enjoyable match. The only complaint I
yeah.
had was I wished that could be a little bit longer.
Well, I fully agree with you. I think you had a great spectacle here with 10 women at the ring. I mean, that's a big match, but I
Yeah,
don't think it was given enough time to really flesh it out as good as it could be. So I don't have anything like super bad to say about this match at all, except for the fact that this is a match that is filled with potential and didn't have enough of a time slot to really breathe.
yeah,
Um, that said, a lot of it is like for having 10 women out there, a lion's share of the actual in ring stuff was largely like split between Sonya Stark and Vega. Like they were largely what carried the match.
yeah,
And to that end, several of the high spots go kind of to Vega. Like Vega hit a huge meteora off the apron on Alba Fire. um, there was another point where Vega and we pointed this out, like some of the stuff she was doing looks like it's been inspired from some stuff we've seen in AEW. Like she hits this like really neat looking axe kick. I don't remember exactly to whom. It may have been Zoe Stark. And then there was another moment where Vega countered out of a suplex with Stun Dog Millionaire. And the
yeah,
reason I point to, like I mentioned, AEW is that her husband, Malachi Black or Alistair Black, depending on how you know him, like that the axe kick reminded me of something he would do. And then the Stun Dog Millionaire I associate with Orange Cassidy. But it looked great. I mean, no complaints. That's not a diss. She did great with those moves. A big part of the reason I say I don't feel like this had enough room to breathe is that several of the ladies don't feel like they had much time actually being the tagged in legal competitor.
mm,
But they were doing a lot of stuff around the outside of the ring. I don't think Shayna Baszler got tagged in at all in this match, and it's possible that maybe someone on the other team didn't either. Like I'm not sure
yeah.
if some of the other, like maybe Caden and Chance, I don't know if they spent much time as the legal competitor either, but there was a lot of stuff going on outside the ring. Um, and the way it ends up finishing, I thought was very good as well. The let's see, I think the way it was that Deville was in the ring with dealing with Natalia, and Vega jumped on her back. And then after she got Vega off of her back, she was standing there kind of hunched over. And Valkyria, sort of tags herself in and goes to the top rope and delivers a diving leg drop, which is very
Yeah.
similar to the finisher that Carmelo Hayes uses to Sonya Deville, and that secures the win. So it was interesting there for me for a couple of reasons. One, Valkyria more or less just totally took Carmelo's finisher. And
Yeah.
second, does that mean that Valkyria now has another finisher, or is she replacing the Nightwing with this finisher going forward?
Maybe she's replacing it.
So I'm kind of curious if that was a debut of a new finisher for Lyra Valkyria.
Yeah.
Um, and if so, is Carmelo gonna keep his or change his up? or um, so that sparked at least a couple of like questions out of me
Mhm.
on that score because I mean we just heard not long ago that Damian Priest did in fact change his finisher out of respect for Cody Rhodes um because he was using I don't remember what he calls it but it is essentially the same move as the Crossroads
Yeah.
um and so he stopped and went with like making South of Heaven and occasionally the Outsider Edge or the Razor's Edge, kind of a backup,
Hmm.
um, out of deference to Cody Rhodes, and for the fact that he doesn't want people to think of Cody Rhodes when he hits his finisher. He wants his finisher to be unique, and make you think of him.
Right.
Um, so it sparks all those kinds of questions, since Valkyria is now using a move that is functionally identical to what Carmelo Hayes uses as a finisher. I'm curious where that stands.
Yeah.
Um, So maybe we'll see if this is a brand new finisher for Valkyria or if it's one more in the arsenal. And maybe we'll see if Carmelo ends up debuting a different finishing maneuver.
Yeah. We shall see, indeed.
Yeah. But all in
I
all,
mean, I kind of think she should keep it though, because I mean, she looked pretty cool doing it. So,
I agree. I
my
agree. It
opinion.
also looked much better than the way she hits Nightwing.
Yeah.
Nightwing is not dissimilar to like the Phantasma driver. Except for the fact that like Valkyria, every time that I've seen her hit it, at least on the main roster, it's very gentle. Like it
Yeah.
looks very like I want to safely put my opponent onto the mat, like kindly and gently. And while it's good that you want to be safe, it can't look like you're, hitting them with a pillow either.
Yeah.
Um, so the leg drop looked significantly more devastating than her like gently placed Nightwing. I don't think that was doing her any favors. So if this is her new finisher, I'm here for it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Nightwing not so much.
Not so much.
Um,
Yep.
so on the whole, I would say this was a good match. I think, as I mentioned before, the only ding is that I think it could have been an even better match if it had had more time and development to
Yeah.
peak. Because you literally emptied the women's locker room to put all of these women out here in one big giant match. It just needed more time to cook, I think, and it could have been really something special.
Yeah. I agree.
Not that this was bad, though. I just feel like it had unrealized and untapped potential that could have been a little better if it was given more time.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%.
And moving on from there, we are coming up on the World Heavyweight Championship. But before we get there, even though there's a little bit of a teaser of that being the next match up, we get a promo of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair talking about how they can't wait to face Damage Control with the women's tag team titles on the line. Um, Cargill says that they're not taking the titles for granted. And
Yeah.
Belair goes on to mention that Io Sky may have caught her slipping a few weeks ago, but she's got to give them credit where credit's due.
Hmm.
However, that said, there's no way that she or Cargill are allowing Damage Control to take over and that they'll be facing them next week. And I'll be honest, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it in a much bigger way than when we were looking at Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus the Unholy Union, because nothing about the Unholy Union's title run or any of their defenses made me feel like they actually like earned it,
Yeah.
because there was always a caveat, like we didn't actually have to pin the champions, and anytime we would get a victory it was in that kind of a situation, and so it really kind of undercut the championship run of Unholy Union because it had a big old asterisk next to it the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I remember saying, I didn't feel that up on Damage Control either because they didn't look any more credible. I mean, you've got Io Sky and Kairi Sane, who are both like way smaller physically than Cargill and Bianca Belair. But then they gave brilliantly Io Sky a one-on-one match with Belair where the finish was believable that Io Sky could catch Belair and get the pin. And so I was like, okay, well, now I'm interested in seeing what Damage Control can do and how they can produce the match so that it makes me believe that these two much smaller women have a shot in hell of beating either Jade or Bianca for those belts. So I'm here for that. And I believe that match is scheduled for next Monday's Raw, so that's something to look forward to. In fact, I think they previewed that and one other match, which is Kofi Kingston versus Braun Breaker. And that's kind of a weird one. Like, of all the people that would be super upset with Braun Breaker for him, like, laying everybody out earlier in the night, why is it Kofi Kingston that is the one to go against Braun Breaker? I mean, I guess maybe because Xavier Woods just wasn't that into it to begin with, would be my thoughts. But why not Jey Uso? Why the deflection to some matches with like Kofi Kingston? It
Yeah.
also begs the question, like, if Breaker demolishes Kofi Kingston, will Xavier Woods then be the one to step up, like, to help because his friend got annihilated? Or will that be the point where Xavier's like, oh, I told you not to get involved, and your dumbass got involved anyway? You remember when you told me I was the playmaker, I was the QB of this team? Then the first opportunity, you just don't listen to me. I could see that
Yeah.
being kind of the exchange.
That'd be good,
And
actually.
that would be really good, and it could show how we get to a breakup of the New Day, which is where I feel like they've been teasing that this is going for a few minutes now.
I kind of feel like they're scared to go there, though. Like, I don't know. I think maybe the audience will just be devastated, which is why I want
well,
them to do it.
I do think that the audience would be upset by it, but I think the reason that they might be dragging it out is that it would feel really weird if it just like after being a tag team for like a bazillion years, suddenly, boom, So I think they want to make it really feel like this is a buildup that finally gets a straw that broke the camel's back moment, instead of it just being like, and today Xavier stabbed Kofi in the back, because
Just
that would
randomly,
feel
out of nowhere.
disingenuous too, right? Like,
Yeah,
if it
that's
was
true.
just all of a sudden, forget all these years of being a tag team and being friends, I hate you now,
Yeah,
It's like,
that's true.
okay.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So,
No. But that segment leads us into the main event of Monday Night Raw, which is going to be the World Heavyweight Championship between Sami Zayn and the Ring General Gunter. And this is essentially a rematch from WrestleMania 40, which is how they've been pitching it forever. And the premise being that Sami Zayn is the only person that has been able to get a pinfall win on Gunter since Gunter hit the main roster. And so that aspect of it does build a little interest, because it's like, could Sammy win? I mean, it's unlikely that Sammy will win, but it's unlikely that Sammy will win every time he's ever won. So,
yeah.
No change there. He's always the underdog. So there's a lot of like, will they? Now, I know the unprecedented title change that occurred for Jey Uso, opens the door for the fact that we could have a title change on, say, like a Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
But I don't yet believe that is a new, like, modus operandi for WWE. I think that
Yeah.
was a kind of a special occasion. So anybody coming into this thinking, well, we know no titles are really going to move on a Monday Night Raw, you're probably right. But let's just, for the sake of argument, hope in this case that maybe that could happen.
Yes.
And in this particular match, I definitely Zayn and Gunter definitely brought it. Like they were all over each other from get go,
Yeah.
and I feel like this was a pretty solid match between the two of them, and it definitely felt like Gunter was more focused. Like
Yeah.
Gunter had mentioned that in the WrestleMania 40 match, he was a lot more like he was taking Zayn way too lightly, and he was a lot more interested in taunting Zayn's family at ringside. In this one, his focus is like a laser. He's all over Sami Zayn,
Yeah.
and they end up having a pretty good back and forth um, until we get kind of to the latter portion of the match. Um, well, I say that, but even then, it was still a pretty good back and forth because there was a point where the match spills outside onto the floor, and I'm trying to remember how the sequence exactly went, but it ultimately resulted in Sami Zayn having Gunter up against the barricade and hitting Gunter with a haluva kick.
Oh
But
yeah,
then
yeah,
Zayn had to struggle to get Gunter back in because at that point he's dead weights. Like Zayn
yeah,
had to stop trying to pick him up in order to jump back into the ring and break the count, or he would, both of them were going to get counted out because he just could not lift Gunter's
yeah,
big ass into the ring in time. So then he comes back and like gets him in a fireman's carry and literally dumps him back into the ring. And um let's see. Then I believe Zayn drilled him again with another haluva kick, and we're
yeah,
thinking, well, this is it. I mean, you
yeah,
haluva kicked the bejesus out of him.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
And he was going in for another. He was going in for, I think, a third one.
yeah,
Uh,
well, yeah, a second one in the ring.
yeah.
And I was trying to remember what Gunter did here. I initially thought it was going to be that massive drop kick, but I think this is the one where
I gave him a
he
lariat.
like popped out of the corner with a lariat that turned Zayn inside out.
Yep.
Um, and then Gunter grabbed Zayn up for a power bomb, but Zayn countered into I think a roll up pin.
Mm-hmm.
Gunter then T-Rex drop kicked him and then hit him with another power bomb, and Zayn kicked out. And the crowd is losing it at this point. Like it's Sammy. Um, and I think Gunter drills him with another lariat and hits
Yeah.
another power bomb and stacks him up. And then Zayn kicks out at one, like defiantly, like
One.
kicks out and sits up, and he's like powering up. And Gunter, like falls back into the ropes with like a look of disbelief, like, what do I got to do to get this guy? Like, he just kicked out of my finisher at one after he's received it like 3 times.
Yeah.
And so, there's really like hope reigns eternal, right? Or springs eternal with this match because it's like Zayn could maybe he's going to win.
Yeah.
And it's at that point that Gunter decides that power bombs aren't going to get it done, so he wraps Sammy up in a sleeper hold in the middle of the ring.
Yeah.
And the crowd is cheering for Sammy, and Zayn starts to get a burst of energy and reaches for the ropes, but then Gunter pulls his hand away and rolls back deeper into the sleeper. And Zayn, the ref checks Zayn's hand, and Zayn holds it up, and he starts to reach for the bottom rope. And that's when Gunter kind of lifts him up and throws him backwards, kind of into the chokehold of the sleeper
Mhm.
hold. And at this point, Sammy just can't fight his way out, and Gunter wins with the sleeper.
Yeah.
And with it go the hopes and the dreams of Sami Zayn being that bolt of lightning that strikes twice.
Yeah. But man,
So
it was a hell of a match. I think
they,
these two men put on a clinic. Um, Sammy is ultimate. Like I love the whole scrappy underdogness of Zayn's character. Um, and it just keeps getting better. I think this one told a really good story, and I think the right guy won. I love Sammy, I do, but I think Gunther needed to solidify a win over Zayn to basically put a notch on or put a pin in that particular issue. I mean that's the one mark that would be on Gunther's record would be the fact that Zayn wrecked him. My only I feel I guess actually I'm of two minds. I feel a little sad that it happened on Monday Night Raw. I can't shake that. It was a it was a live event worthy match, and but I mean, I think I don't know. See again, of two minds because why not give the people that are watching Monday Night Raw one hell of a match? Why not? Why
Yeah.
keep all of your excellent matches for PLEs? That feels kind of shitty. Because the people that go to your Monday Night Raw and your Friday Night SmackDown and your NXT, those people are like dedicated fans keeping the lights on, right? So why not give them a special treat? It was really nice for them to have the match for with Braun Breaker and Jey Uso on Monday night. That was nice.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so I think maybe if this is the thing that they're gonna start doing now, well they'll have like really big high profile matches like this on Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown. I mean I could get into that. But I also, again, the other mind, feel like this one started in PLE and maybe it should have ended that way because this really was an epic storytelling, almost bloodline level epic, and it kind of feels like a small disservice. So see how torn I am. You see.
I
Um,
do. I do.
but overall, one hell of a match, man. I'm happy that I got to see it. Because remember, I wasn't even feeling Sammy and Gunther running this back. I was like, I've already seen this. Sammy doesn't
Yeah.
need a belt. There's no heat here, and all of that is correct. But man, they put on a clinic, and it ended up becoming. I think for me, this is probably a match of the night. It was good.
Yeah. I think for me it's between this and the Donnybrook. Just for pure insane wrestling action.
Yeah,
Um, that could be match of the night. And I mean, if you're watching Raw, there's no reason you won't watch both of them. At
yeah,
least I don't think so. So no loss. Like they could both be match of the night. It's
yeah,
fine. Um, but I agree with you. That this was definitely a high caliber match. But if the WWE going forward, and I think they absolutely should going forward, are going to not hold in reserve like for PLEs, all of the good stuff. One, I
yeah,
think it's good because it makes the product less predictable. Like I said, like going into this, most people could have been like, yeah, it could be cool, but it's on a Monday Night Raw, and even though Jey Uso kind of broke that streak once, they're probably still going to follow their MO of not having belts transfer on television. I'm hoping that they break that, honestly, because it makes the product predictable. Like we can be
yeah,
like, oh, this is cool match, but nothing's going to happen because it's not a PLE. Like I
yeah,
want to not be able to say that, and so it makes because then it's predictable. And I'm all for them moving away from that predictability. Like I think that is worth more than what anybody may feel was lost that this match didn't happen on a PLE. Because
yeah,
going forward, and it would have to start somewhere, going forward, if they want it to not be so predictable and they want you to believe that a championship match on Raw or SmackDown has as much viability of a title change as anything that could happen on a PLE, and it should, because what's the point of any championship match where you don't honestly believe the title belt's at risk? Um, then it has to start somewhere, and I don't think that it is a disservice if we're moving to an era where such things don't just happen on PLEs.
yeah,
If it's going to be the norm that if we give you a championship match, there is a very real, or you should at least believe that there is a very real possibility that that belt moves.
yeah,
Not that you can sit back and say, he's safe. It's Monday Night Raw. They never move the title. I don't
Yeah.
want to be able to say that of the product, but it's been true. And so anything that breaks up that stagnating predictability is a good thing, and it's worth more than any one of these matches. Like for the health of the product overall.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a good look because I mean, and I know I say all the time. I don't mean to compare AEW and WWE, but again, it's just one of the things that I like about AEW. One of the things that attracted me to AEW is just because this match is happening on a Wednesday or on a or on a Saturday or on a Friday, don't mean that that belt won't move. And
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like that a lot because
Mm-hmm.
or you get two people getting in the ring and you go you don't really go, oh, this person's gonna win. You never freaking know because
Yeah.
honestly,
Yep.
I mean, I can cite so many matches where I'm like, oh yeah, there's no way this guy's gonna win. There's no way that what was his name, the high flyer, the one who had the match with the Learning Tree with Jericho.
The High Flyer?
Yeah, the guy that's
Action
in.
Andretti.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, who thought Action Andretti was going to win that match against Chris Jericho? And
No
yet,
one.
and yet,
Yep.
that's the kind of stuff I like about AEW. Every once in a while, WWE does that, but it's a fluke. It's a joke, like what they did with
Yeah.
uh oh, come on,
Vinny Vinny
Apollo
Vinci
Cruz
or
and
yeah.
Vin. Yes, yeah, like
Yeah.
what they did with those two. Like, ha ha, I won because you just did a little quick roll up pin because you're taking off your
Yeah.
jacket. Ha ha. Yeah, if they do stuff like that, but I'm talking about a no holds barred, like just balls to the wall, fucking match. AEW's got that for days, man. Like and this guy who isn't the underdog wins. I like that. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I like that
Well,
about that. So I think it would be a nice little turn for WWE to do something along those lines, and that would definitely keep the element of surprise going. You never freaking know, right? And I feel like that's the way it
yep.
should be.
Well, I don't think I agree with you. By the way,
Mhm.
but just to add to it, um, it's not a good thing for a product like this to be that predictable. Um, we as fans would like to be surprised sometimes. So
Yes.
if I can say this belt isn't moving because of the show that it happens to be on is not a PLE, that's predictable. If you give me a match where clearly you have some of your roster that are top guys and a whole bunch that are jobbers, and then you give me a match where it's like a champion versus a jobber, I can say 99.9% of the time who's going to win with accuracy. Your
Yeah.
stuff's predictable. And in that regard, AEW has done a much better job of not letting too much of its main roster just do the job so consistently that we don't have any reason to believe they have the right to even stand across from the champion that steps
Yeah.
into the ring.
Hell,
They
even their
have made it
jobbers get
so that
chances.
yeah, they've made it so that everyone on their roster has a believable shot of winning. And that's super healthy. That was WWE back in the Attitude Era. If you had a match between like Kane and Mankind, it could go either way. If you had a
Yeah.
match between The Undertaker and Stone Cold, it could go either way.
Yeah.
And if you had a match between like Ken Shamrock and The Rock, it could go either way. So at no point were we like, oh, he's clearly going to lose. Like they used quote unquote local talent if they needed to squash somebody.
Yes. Yeah.
Squashing your main roster by making clearly a cadre of top guys that are only ever going to be the ones to have the gold makes for boring programming
I agree.
because the matches are all foregone conclusions at that point.
Yeah.
So elevate the entire roster so on any given night, any one of these guys could win the belt. And
Yeah.
if you recall, WWE during that time actually won the Monday Night Raw Wars, sorry, with an event where Mankind won the WWE Heavyweight Championship off of The Rock
Yeah.
that nobody believed would happen. Like nobody would look at that and be like, "Oh, yeah, it's anything other than The Rock squashing Mankind." That is the moment that many people agree that WWE just beat WCW,
Yeah.
and from that point forward. And it's because everybody in the Attitude Era was a guy who could get in the ring with any other guy and could potentially be the guy, the champion.
Yeah.
And that's what you want out of your roster. Not like a whole bunch of like, these guys are clearly mid card, these guys are top card, and these guys are like local talent level of like permanent jobber, like what they did with Dolph Ziggler, for instance. And like, you mentioned Apollo Crews that we, jokingly call Apollo Lose because
Hmm.
Apollo hasn't won anything in a long time outside of those quick pin wins against Vinci. And so, end that. If you're going to do anything in the new era, end the predictability
Yeah.
of the stale product, and we're on a right track. So, I'm here for all of that. Like, I don't want to be able to look at the two men getting in the ring and immediately call the match. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be fine to have a prediction, but I don't want to have a spoiler, to quote the wise man. So I think any of that stuff is much, much, much healthier for the overall product of WWE because you do want it to be unpredictable. Anybody looking at Gunter and Sami Zayn could predict that Gunter is going to stomp him into the floor. I mean, you're just looking at it like here's giant Gunter and here's little bitty Zayn,
Hmm.
and Zayn looks, yeah, no offense, but he looks like he's a skinny homeless man compared to, and that's all part of Sami Zayn's underdog picture,
Hmm.
but I want it. You see how much interest it generated that Sami Zayn got the upset on Gunter to end that IC reign. That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. So it's clearly a better product when we can't have any foregone conclusions or at least very few of them, if not none.
Yeah.
Um, because it's a much more interesting and compelling thing to watch because then you're waiting to see how it turns out instead of already know how it's gonna turn out.
Yeah.
So fully agree there.
Yeah.
But that said, I also agree with what you said earlier about thinking that this went the correct way.
Yeah.
Um, I think that it was one thing to say that Sami Zayn dug deep and, was able to do the impossible and defeat Gunter. But after Gunter's historic IC reign and near undefeated streak, it would look really like I think it would have done more to bury Gunter than to promote Sami Zayn if it had happened again.
I agree.
And Gunter sort of has established that he's good at going back. Like you might beat him once if you're lucky, but he's going to study that tape and he's real good at coming back, because he's the ring general. He comes back and he dismantles, the blemish off of his wrestling record. And I
Yeah.
think it did good here to continue that because I think it would have buried Gunter more than it would have done anything for Sami Zayn.
I agree.
Um, so I do think this was the correct decision. And I
Hmm.
think it also makes for a very interesting upcoming crown jewel. I mean, not going to lie, I was far less interested in Cody Rhodes versus Sami Zayn than I am in potentially seeing Cody Rhodes versus Gunter.
Oh yeah, I'm
Assuming
definitely
that
here for that.
all of the current champions are still the champions come crown jewel.
Yeah.
That I think is a very compelling matchup. Um, that said, what would be your rating for this WWE Monday Night Raw?
I'll give it a top tier because I think they handled the 2 hour window well. I think even though the matches, the two matches, like the one between Jay Uso and Xavier, and the ladies 10 man tag team or 10 woman tag team match, even though those were short, they still did a great job at progressing their stories. Jay versus Xavier more so than the latter, but um so yeah, overall, I would give this a top tier. It was easy. It was an easy watch. It was fun to watch. I realized that the 2 hours were over before I knew it, and Sami Zayn and Gunther gave us again. I said it. earlier, I'll say it again, a freaking clinic. It was really good. And that's I wasn't even I wasn't even hyped for that match, and it still ended up becoming, or it ended up being, my favorite match of the night. So yeah, overall top tier. I said all that just to say top tier. I'll shut up now.
I agree. I agree. My rating is going to be bangers in clinic. A reference to the two matches. One was a banger, and the other was a clinic.
Yeah.
Um, and that will translate into top tier. This WWE Raw was, I think, very, very good. I think if I'm wistful for anything at all, it would be that the 10 women match, I think needed just a hair more room to breathe, because I would love to see something like I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I'd love to see something like that again that has more time to showcase the ladies involved.
Yeah.
Because that immediately had me intrigued. Like, it's not often that they have such a big, like, 10-person match
Yeah.
that, I was like, oh, what you gonna do with this? And they did great with the time they had allotted. I would just love to see a little bit more, because I want to see a little bit more, as a fan.
Yeah.
That said, the pacing was generally, outside of that one exception, and I'm not gonna give it a big ding or anything on that. I'm just noting it. Outside of that, the pacing was fantastic, and a 2-hour Raw felt like it was just at a sprint the whole way through, with very
Yeah.
little downtime or dead zones, and that's fantastic. I really enjoyed it,
Yeah.
and I look forward to seeing, going forward, how that looks. I know it's their intention to go back to a 3-hour format, but maybe they can learn to keep that pace, squeezing into the 2-hour format when they go back to a 3-hour format, so that you don't
Yeah.
necessarily feel all 3 hours. Like, if they can get that to where you're like, whew, that's
Yeah.
already over, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think the
and
only
that would be
thing.
cool.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, go
I,
ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say the only thing, or the only, I guess, ding that I would put on this is maybe less repeat promos and a little more time for those two smaller matches. Because
Yeah.
I could have done with not seeing the promo for Braun Breaker versus Bronson Reed again. Um, oh,
Oh,
and at least,
big Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, you mean?
yeah, Braun Strowman. Yeah, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
I could have gone with not seeing that again. They could have taken at least one of the previews for, or one of the reviews of Bad Blood out. Because they kind of covered it heavily at the beginning. I didn't need a second one focused on one particular match. Like, you could have thrown all that in one particular segment. So, uh,
yeah. I
I
agree.
think I
The
think I could have done with less of that, and that could have given us at least maybe another 3 minutes between both matches. And say what you will, a minute 30, a lot can happen in a minute 30 for each match. So I mean, that would
Yeah.
have been good enough for me. That it just needed to be a tad bit longer. That's all.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I've long complained that sometimes SmackDown or Raw can feel like it's a really long commercial with some wrestling in it.
Yeah.
And this is a move in the right direction. I'm giving them credit for that, absolutely. But they could also be more judicious and shorter with their recaps, because sometimes their recap is like, now I don't need to watch this match. You've given me all of it. Like, pick like some very relevant material, truncate it, and deliver it quickly, so it's an actual recap, not like a replay of like every. Because I know come SmackDown, we're going to get some recapping of Bad Blood. So between those two shows, it'll be like, man, I feel like I've watched it,
Yeah.
So get a little cleaner and shorter with the recaps, so that we can have more new content in the form of,
Yeah.
wrestling product. And I think we'll be in a really good spot. I mean, the commercials exist; they have to. I get it. That's where you make your money. I'm here for it. But just keep tighter would be my recommendation. Keep a little tighter with your recaps, and any wasted or non-essential, television that isn't some in-ring action or promoting the stories or a promo. Like, that's what we're here for. We're here for in-ring and promos,
Yeah.
and ideally good ones. But that's never been a big issue. So just maximize that time a little bit better. The recaps, I think, sometimes are just a bit much.
Yeah,
Um, and it's a bit longer of a recap than I think is necessary to get people on the page.
I
So
agree.
that's it. I think you and I are saying the same thing in that
Yep.
regard. Um, to that end, I want to thank everybody who has joined us for this episode, and I certainly hope you join us for our next episode. And until then, I guess it's time to roll the outro.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.